Imagine, just for a second, a creature whose very breath is pure poison, a being whose literal touch brings death. But if you look deep enough into his eyes, you see the entire universe reflected right back at you. Welcome to today's Explainer, guys. We're diving straight into the life, the leadership, and the ultimate sacrifices of Vasuki, the King of Serpents. We're not just looking at some mythological creature today, we're actually decoding a massive blueprint for selfless leadership and unmatched devotion.
You know, whenever you see an image of Lord Shiva, you instantly notice that snake coiled around his neck, right? It's so iconic that a lot of us just kind of accept it as a cool mythical accessory. But honestly, we have to ask, is he really just a creature? Well, the source material we're digging into today absolutely shatters that idea. That snake is Vasuki, and he wasn't just placed there by accident. He literally embodies this profound philosophy of sacrifice, a king who gave up absolutely everything and expected zero in return.
So let's jump right into Section 1, Vasuki, not just a serpent.
Okay, so to really get Vasuki, you've got to look at his older brother, Sheshnag. You've probably heard of him. He's the ultimate symbol of immense cosmic power and infinite patience, serving as the resting place for Lord Vishnu and holding the literal weight of the earth. Now, contrast that with Vasuki, the ruler of Nagaloka, the underworld. If Sheshnag represents the path of cosmic power, Vasuki is all about the path of pure sacrifice and devotion. Both are incredibly great, obviously, but their paths are completely different. Vasuki carved out this entirely unique identity for himself, not by showing off his might, but by what he was willing to endure.
So what was this Serpent King actually like? Well, the texts outline some pretty magnificent physical traits. For starters, he had a glowing Nagamani, a divine gem right on his hood, that was so incredibly radiant, it literally lit up the entire dark underworld. But even more fascinating, his hypnotic eyes. It was said that anyone who locked eyes with Vasuki would instantly remember their own mistakes and sins. And the wild part is, he didn't use this to punish people. He used it to rule with absolute impartial justice. He didn't depress the weak, he certainly didn't fear the strong, and because of that, he was a deeply, deeply beloved king to his people.
Moving right along to Section 2, Supreme Devotion to Lord Shiva.
Now, getting to where he ended up required some unimaginable physical endurance. Back in his youth, Vasuki heard about Lord Shiva, you know, the master of the three worlds who hangs out in cremation grounds and doesn't even fear death. Well, Vasuki developed this singular, intense desire to serve him, so he retreated to a cave in the Himalayas and started a totally severe penance. First, he completely gave up food and water. Then, as days turned to months and months into years, termites literally built mounds over his unmoving body. Think about that. Next, massive forest fires raged all around him, but he was completely unfazed, continually chanting Shiva's name. Finally, after all this extreme sensory deprivation and massive physical toll, Lord Shiva actually manifested right before him. He was completely moved by a devotion that literally defied nature itself. And guys, this brings us to one of the most powerful moments in the texts. When Shiva appears, he basically hands Vasuki a blank check. He offers him any boon he wants. Wealth, power, immortality, you name it. But Vasuki's response? He simply says, "Lord, I want nothing but to always be near you, in your service." I mean, wow. The core takeaway here is that true devotion asks for absolutely nothing. Shiva was so touched by this pure selflessness that he granted Vasuki the ultimate honor, a permanent spot as the eternal ornament resting right around his neck.
Next up, Section 3, the great sacrifice of the ocean churning.
Okay, so let's set the scene here. The gods had lost their divine power to the Asuras because of a curse, and the only way to get it back was to churn the massive cosmic ocean to find the nectar of immortality. Now, you can't just use ordinary tools for a cosmic ocean, right? So they use Mount Mandara as the massive churning rod. But they need a rope. Brahma steps in and declares that only Vasuki is strong enough for the job. So Vasuki wraps his enormous body around the literal mountain while the gods and Asuras pull from opposite ends. Lord Vishnu actually tricked the Asuras into standing near Vasuki's head. Why does that matter? Because as the pulling started, the friction was brutal. His body was scraping against rough mountain rock, and the immense heat caused actual fire and smoke to billow from his mouth, severely burning the Asuras in the process.
But here's the thing you really need to understand. When the gods and Asuras first went to Vasuki's court to ask for his help, he fully knew what he was signing up for. He knew his spine was going to bear the weight of a mountain. He knew his skin would be torn to shreds. He knew his body was going to be completely broken in this cosmic tug of war, and yet, no hesitation. His response was just a silent, totally stoic, "I am ready." He willingly accepted this immense personal torture just to ensure the universe could survive.
So, as they're churning, all these wondrous treasures start emerging from the ocean. But then,
right before the nectar, something absolutely terrifying surfaces, the halahal. This was a lethal, totally toxic cosmic poison, and the texts describe this moment in horrifying detail. The ocean's surface instantly turns pitch black. This acrid, toxic smell starts burning the lungs of the gods and asuras, and the air itself actually begins to scorch. This poison was literally about to dissolve all of creation. Naturally, everyone ran for their lives. Well, everyone except Vasuki, because remember, he's still tied around the mountain. He literally couldn't escape, so he just stayed there, absorbing the searing heat of the poison.
To save everything, Lord Shiva shows up and actually drinks the halahal poison, holding it right in his throat, which is why it turns blue, giving him the name Nilkanth. But you know the saying, right? True love stays during pain. When Shiva drank that poison, Vasuki was still coiled tightly around his neck. The texts point out that while Vasuki's physical pain from the churning was off the charts, the emotional agony of watching his beloved deity consume deadly poison was so much worse. But did he uncoil and run away? No way. He held on even tighter, sharing in Shiva's agony, silently telling his lord, "I am right here with you."
Let's move to Section 4, the snake sacrifice and the mother's curse.
Now, let's see how all this builds into a truly devastating chain of events. And it all kicks off with, believe it or not, a petty bet between Vasuki's mother, Kadru, and her sister Vinata over the color of a divine horse's tail. Talk about mythic family drama escalating, right? When Kadru's snake children refused to cheat to help her win, she completely lost it and unleashed a fiery curse on her own sons, dooming them all to burn in a future fire sacrifice. Decades later, fulfilling a totally different destiny, the serpent Takshaka fatally bites King Parikshit. Driven by immense grief and rage, Parikshit's son, King Janamejaya, starts the Sarpa Yagya, a massive, vengeful fire sacrifice designed to literally pull every single snake in the universe straight into the flames.
Guys, this is where we see the absolute heartbreak of a true leader. The priests chanted these powerful mantras, and one by one, serpents were magically dragged from the underworld into this agonizing fire. Young, old, innocent, it didn't matter. Think about Vasuki for a second. This is the same stoic king who didn't shed a single tear when his own body was being shredded against Mount Mandara. But now, as he sits in his court forced to listen to the horrific screams of his innocent subjects burning alive all because of his mother's ancient curse, he just weeps helplessly. It's such a profound look at the burden of leadership. It's one thing to endure your own pain, but watching your people suffer, that's what finally breaks you.
Fortunately, Vasuki's past virtues and some serious cosmic foresight ended up saving his race. Long before this, Lord Brahma had actually advised Vasuki to marry his sister off to a great sage, predicting that their kid would be the ultimate savior. That kid was Astika, Vasuki's incredibly wise nephew. Astika heads over to the site of the sacrifice and uses his profound Vedic knowledge to totally impress King Janamejaya. He speaks with such incredible wisdom that the king offers him a boon, and Astika, he simply asks for the sacrifice to end immediately. The Naga race is saved, and Vasuki's ultimate duty as a protective king is finally fulfilled.
Which brings us to Section 5, the immortal philosophy of Vasuki. This covers a massive legacy of gratitude, which, by the way, later included Vasuki blessing the mighty Pandava warrior Bhima with the literal strength of 10,000 elephants.
But really, there is perhaps no greater validation in all the Hindu texts than this ultimate declaration made right in the middle of the epic Kurukshetra war, when Lord Krishna reveals his supreme universal form to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. He starts listing off the absolute greatest entities in existence to explain his omnipresence. He says, "Among deities, I am Indra. Among rivers, I am the Ganges." And then, crucially, he says, "Among serpents, I am Vasuki." I mean, that is eternal proof, straight from Lord Krishna, cementing Vasuki's greatness forever. It completely validates that his path of service and sacrifice elevated him high above everyone else.
Fast forward to today, and every single year, millions of people celebrate the festival of Naga Panchami. Now, to an outsider, it might just look like the worship of snakes, but it's actually a modern celebration of Vasuki's unparalleled sacrifice, his pure devotion, and his absolutely just leadership. When milk is offered during the festival, it's a direct tribute to the king who allowed his own body to be broken just to extract the nectar of immortality for the universe. It's for the king who gave absolutely everything and asked for absolutely nothing in return. So we arrive at our final thought for today's explainer.
The source material we've unpacked today shows us pretty clearly that true devotion gives without asking, and a true leader stands firmly by their people, especially in times of immense pain. So my question to you is, how will you embody the spirit of Vasuki in your own life today? Whether it's in your career, with your family, or out in your community, how can you lead with a little more sacrifice and a little less ego? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this incredible story leaves you inspired to reflect on your own definitions of devotion and leadership.